Not gonna lie, this is gonna take a much more long-winded explanation from me, but you're very capable of this, as is anybody else who's trying to learn it. Okay, so what we're gonna do is check and recharge the AC. You ready to learn? Nice. All right, so number one, right? What we're doing right now is not recommended. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I want to preface this by saying AC system is a closed system. So you don't just lose Freon, right? That means you have a leak. So you should be finding the leak and fixing it. Now, in the real world, right, a lot of times that leak will be so small that like you charge your system once a year, right? Sometimes once every 2 years. People tend to just live with that instead of replacing very expensive components, right? So that's kind of what we're shooting for here. I have no idea how long this will hold, but I have everything to just fill it. And while Freon's not cheap, we'll give it one go. I like to give it one go to see how things hold. All right, now we've gone that spiel, right? To do this the right way, what you don't use is one of those stupid bottles with a shitty little gauge on the top. So one of these guys, real bad. Don't use that, right? You need manifold gauges. Now these gauges are very nice, right? But they sell them in Harbor Freight. You can rent these at like O'Reilly's, I think. You can buy them on Amazon. We'll put a link in the description. I'm like an Amazon person now. Heck yeah, so if you want some. You need to know high pressure and low pressure to make a reasonable assessment, right? So now we're gonna learn how to hook these bad boys up and what to do with it. So on both sides here, these are like basically the holder points, right? So you got these, basically like an air chuck, right?
Oh, okay.
It's like a ball bearing fitted air chuck kind of a deal, right? And these caps, right? So I guess to understand, since you've never done this before, right? So there's gonna be ports. You can see one right there on that line, right? They typically have caps on them, but yeah. So
this is the other one?
yeah, I'll explain that in a second. But yeah, so those are your ports, right? So those have what's called a Schrader valve in it, right? So if you trying to think of something you may have seen with a Schrader valve in it, like a bicycle tube tire, right? You know, you can put air in it, but it doesn't come out, right? So when how that works is like when you put your filler on, right? Or in this case, it'll be these, right? There's a little pin in there, and that pin is like spring loaded, and it will come up and create a seal so shit can't leak out. So when you put it on, it presses that pin down and creates an opening so you can pump air into your bicycle tire. Or in this case, we're gonna put this on, we're gonna screw this cap down, and that cap is gonna press the Schrader valve and allow us to pull and put into the system, right? So the reason I tell you that is one, it's valuable information to know so you know how it works.
Which one goes where?
No, because what you wanna do is make sure before you put any of these on, right, that they're unscrewed all the way. So you can take that off, just take it off the side of the gauges. There you go. And then, yeah, I just give it like a quick turn in my hand. And then sometimes I normally start by turning it right to make sure it will tighten. And then I loosen it all the way again. What? See?
Oh, right was loose.
That's tighten. So, all right, unscrew it all the way now. So what you're doing is you're tightening a pin. Look in there. You can look in there and see how it works. See that little pin? As you tighten that down, that presses what I was talking about. That's going to be in your line. That's the Schrader valve press. So that will press on your Schrader valve tip and then create an opening for you. All right, so you have a high pressure and a low pressure size port, right? They're gonna be different sizes. So the right size will only fit on the correct fitting, right? This car, I'm gonna notate this right now because I was sitting over here going like, what Tom, Dick, and Harry would do this, right? Never in my entire life have I seen a vehicle that has more than one low pressure and one high pressure port. This car has 2 low pressures. I don't know what happened, but the accumulator has one and the line has one. I don't know why. Those are both lows.
Oh, this has an L on it. Huh.
Yeah, I don't know why that's there.
Unless
or why
that's
there.
supposed to go here, because this doesn't have one, and maybe this is the high.
No, that's the high over there.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the cap for the high. But yeah, so we're gonna use that fill port.
Okay.
Right, so all you do is put it on like an air hose, so you pull it back and press it on there. There you go. Get it nice and clicked on. Wait, don't screw that in yet. So then pull it up and make sure it's on there, like the whole unit. There you go, now you're on. All right, and now before you screw that on, put the high pressure side on. So you unscrew that cap, yep. There you go. There you go. Now what do you check? This is the most important one to check. When you take this off, there you go, perfect. So whenever you take this high pressure off, it will all make sense.
Oh.
Yeah. If you tried to put that on with that Schrader valve depressed, you're gonna be in for a world of hurt. Are you clicked on all the way?
I don't think so, but it sounded like air came out when I put it on.
Just push it on there. So you pull that.
After you said I'd be in a world of hurt, I don't want to be in a world of hurt. I ain't got no insurance right now.
You'll be all right. It'll just scare you. Oh, that sounded good. Perfect. Okay. So before we tighten those, right, let's hook up our bottle. You don't have to do this, but we're going to. I like to do this. Okay. So the bottle, this end of it right here is just here to hold it. Just so that way your line's not dangling to the floor. So this unscrews. Right. Now, I don't know what comes on like the Harbor Freight edition or like the O'Reilly's one, but like we have this little closer valve here on the fill line. So this also closes. See how I just let pressure off? So this is also a valve, right? Also, ours is real jankety. So I put an O-ring literally in every time to seal against my bottle. So I'm gonna go grab one real quick because it always falls out for whatever reason. But there should be an O-ring built into this surface down here. So whenever you made it to your R134 bottle, right, or can. So obviously, you don't expect every person who's trying to fill something to have a giant 30-pound jug of R134, and the fitting is different than what's on the top of these bottles. But they sell like a $5 adapter. So like if you're trying to top off your system and not even, or if you change something and you're refilling it, right, then you still need to know low and high pressure. High pressure is way more important than low pressure. So the gauge on that bottle only reads low side and it's not very accurate. So you need manifold gauges because this is the one that's going to set everything, not this one per se, right? The difference between the two pressures is what creates coldness, not just the low side pressure, if that makes sense. All right, so we're gonna put this on the bottle now. We got the O-ring in there. Like I said, most gauge kits. Look, there's the old one. Told you it falls off every time. All right. So let me get this on here so we don't have any leaks. Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna take this back and I'm gonna let you do it from here. Okie dokie. So what you're gonna do to start things off, right, is unscrew the green top on that bottle. So that way it's open.
All the way?
Yep. The order of events here is not important, but we're just gonna do it that way. Now screw in the low one and the high one.
Same time or?
No, you should do one at a time, it doesn't matter. So they should actually reach equilibrium if the car's not on. Right, so, which is actually exactly where they're at. So you see how this high side's at 70 and this side's at 70, give or take? That's exactly how they should be.
Oh.
Sometimes they don't. I don't know. Some systems have like some sort of check where it maintains a little high pressure, right? But I'm gonna go start the car here. You can hold the camera. When I start the car, right, the high pressure side should start to build in my head. On and then clicks off. See it? Watch the gauges. You'll see these move every time it clicks on. That's your AC compressor. Right? See how we're sitting down here at about 100 psi of high side pressure? Yeah, and then the AC compressor starts to lose, it kicks on, the low side will drop, the high side will climb a little bit, and it cycles off. That's because it does not have enough R134. So what we're going to do is we're going to reach down here. We're going to open this valve, right? So I'll open that one. And here, you can just watch me do this, right? So we're gonna be monitoring this. So I'm gonna open this valve, which will start pumping R134 in, okay? And we're gonna start by watching this high side. The rule of thumb is high side should be ambient air temperature, plus 100 and like 10 to 20%. So like right now it's probably like 80 degrees out. So we're gonna shoot for about like the 200 range, right? And then when we do this, the AC compressor should kick on and stay on. See how it's not turning off now? Oh, it just cycled off again. But it should, and we'll close it and let it cycle around a little bit more. Let's see how high it builds up. So we'll keep pumping more in. So we want to see that high side. This is what you want. You want this puppy to build up to about 200 with the temperature outside here now. So, and you want to, like, once you get close to where you want to be, you want to add a little bit for a second and then turn it and let it cycle. All right, close it. And now you're just going to let it pump for a little bit, like enough to let go of it. Oh, you're pretty dang close to that 200 mark, man. So 40 to 200 is a really good difference. The low side, right, the rule of thumb is, like, basically you don't want to take it over 60 psi if possible. All right, let's go feel it. So as long as you don't have that valve open, it's not putting any R134 in. And when you do have it open, it is. I mean, it feels cold to me.
Yeah,
Feels like AC.
You know me, I don't like it too cold.
I mean, dude, that's like, I don't have the infrared thermometer on there, but that's super cold, man. That's like probably 49 degrees, 50 degrees at the vent. Like, it's about as good as you're gonna get.
That's fine.
Yes. All right. So important, again, more important information here. So I'll tell you this because you're supposed to be learning, right? So now you're full, right? So we're done here,
Okay.
right? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn the valve off at the bottom. Yep, either or. Yeah, we're gonna turn them both off, so whichever order. Now screw that all the way down tight. Perfect. Okay, now you can turn the car off. And again, it's, you know, it's however you want to do it, but I like to unscrew both of them all the way and then pop them off one at a time and put them back on the manifold. That's kind of my process. Put it back on the gauges. Now put your cap back on the high side. Awesome possum. Now you just unscrew that and then screw it back up there on these gauges. While you do that, I'm gonna go grab something. That is UV dye, right? So you're gonna take this cap off, right? And on the low pressure side, you're just gonna press it on there and go like 1,000, 2, 1,000, and just squirt it in there. Just press it nice and hard. 1, 2. Oh God, you spilled it everywhere. It's all right. You're gonna get on here and like that. See? Nice and hard.
Whoops.
Okay, so what that just did, right? We'll wipe that off with a paper towel.
I dyed my shit.
So wipe all that up. That's gonna be bad. So let's get that wiped up. That will throw off our science later. Aww. So what that is, right, is under a black light, that shit glows like you've never seen before. I'll go get a black light and show you. I have a pin for this, right? But essentially what that does is that will fill your entire system. It won't harm anything, right? But it will cycle through the system. So if your AC goes out in like a day or two, right, we'll be able to find exactly where it's leaking.
Oh, okay.
So the reason you put the dye in there is because it does that.
Oh.
Yeah. So if it leaks anywhere, that's what it's gonna look like up there or down here, right? Like you can actually see a little dribble right there, right?
That's probably from me just now.
That is from you slinging it everywhere. God, look how much you spilled down there. Oh, you're gonna make our life hard in the future. So much.
I thought I had it on right. Don't do what I did.
It's all right. It's all right. No big deal. So yeah, that's all there is to topping off AC. But like I said, so the important things to note here, right? One, what was the number one thing, Brittany? There was a lot of information that you were supposed to just take in. What do you remember? Let's do a quick synopsis.
First off, when you're doing the ramps,
No,
sure you reach the pedals.
we're not talking about oil. We're only talking about AC here, Brittany. What have you learned?
Learned a lot of shit.
Oh yeah, I did. But you had to know a lot of shit to do this. I'm on. Recap.
That's high, that's low.
Yep, that's important. What one's the most important? Yep.
High.
Okay. What should you do before you start just putting shit in? This is the first thing that I said. You should fix your leak.
Well,
AC,
if you know where you're leaking,
AC
you fix it.
systems are closed systems. So typically if you're doing this, I mean, it's a shot in the dark, right? Oh, this is what I was talking about. This is a can tap. So that will convert it to a manifold gauge. So you can put that on the top of those cans and then use them through the gauge. So you still get the right readings, but you don't have to buy a 30-pound bottle. You can buy the cans everyone likes to buy. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, you probably want to make sure you fix your leak, but if you want to just give it a go, you can do that. Make sure you use gauges. Those bottles are so untrustworthy. I've seen them break more stuff than I've seen them fix. What else is there, Brittany? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory once you get going. Hook your gauges up, make sure that you don't depress the Schrader valves. There's like a Google the guide, or I'll flash it on the screen here, but it's like ambient air temperature plus 100 degrees plus or minus like 20% or 10% or something is the high side pressure.
Which that was a bunch of shit I wouldn't have remembered. Oh,
but you can always,
Google
Google it though, right? Like the key to remember from that isn't, because you can tell I don't even remember, right? Mm-hmm. Like the key to that is knowing that there is like a range, right? So when you go to do it, you're like, oh, what was the high side supposed to be? You can Google like high side or AC high side pressure, right? Like all you have to do is Google that, and you'll pop up a chart, and it will tell you all the ambient air temperature sensors, or all the ambient air temperatures outside, and like what your high pressure side should read. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. What else did we learn? I think that's really about it, right? I was gonna mention this. Real quick. So if anybody comes across this video and is wondering about AC, if you fixed something, right, it's totally different from what we just did. I'm looking for a sticker somewhere. Now, I'm not seeing one, but I'll go through this anyway real quick. So if you've changed anything, a Schrader valve, an AC compressor, anything in your system, right, you're still going to use these gauges, right, but you have to vacuum your system first, which is super important. So you do that through this yellow line. So instead of hooking it to the bottle, you hook it to a vacuum pump. You run it for about 30 minutes with both ports open, right? And you pull a vacuum across the entire system. You draw all the moisture and any air that's been in there out, right? Then you'll close it, turn off your vacuum pump. You'll let it sit for 30 minutes to an hour to make sure that it doesn't have any leaks, right? And then once it's good, then you go to filling it the way we just did, right? Just through the low pressure side. High pressure stays closed the entire time, and you refill it that way. But if you're starting fresh, I was looking for a sticker. This car doesn't seem to have it anywhere. But pretty much every vehicle somewhere in this engine bay will have a sticker that has the exact weight of R134 that it takes, right? So you don't have to do it the way we did. If you know the weight and you're starting fresh, you just put in the exact amount of weight. So you can do that with a scale, or you can do that by buying the appropriate amount in like those little cans and just putting them in, or it'll at least get you close. Does that make sense? Like I have a scale, so we'll put that on a scale, and I'll zero it out, and like say it takes 1.8 pounds, right? I'll set it on 0, and whenever the scale reads negative 1.8, I'll turn it off, and I'm done. And it's like, that's how easy that is. So what we just did is just a top off, see how long it holds, see if it leaks out, kind of deal.
And then,
That's that. What'd you learn today?
a bunch of shit.
That's gonna be my new, that's gonna be my new in and out on all of these videos. What'd you learn?
I learned how to change oil, and I learned how to do the AC stuff.
There you go. Except, well, that's